Hello and welcome to episode 74 of Nintendo Therapy, a show about the latest Nintendo news and rumors, as well as a celebration of all of the things Nintendo. My name is Kevin, and with me this week in the year 20XX to talk about Mega Man Boss, remake costs, and the times Nintendo lost is Harrison.
Yeah, I didn't realize how many Mega Man games there actually were, but we're gonna have to cycle back around to that,
Oh,
and
it
like at the
rivals
end of the
Kirby.
episode. Yes, so we're not even close to being there just yet. But yes, what's how you doing today, Kevin?
I'm doing good. We actually got a listener email question that I wanted to put in here as, encourage that behavior. Reach out more to us, guys. We wanna hear from you, and we want to know, what your thoughts are and things like that. The listener, where is it? Username was slash rock and then a bunch of numbers. I'm not sure if the numbers are significant, but and yeah, they asked, with all that was announced in the recent Nintendo Direct, do you still believe the rumors that the Switch 2 was originally scheduled for release this year and then delayed? Which I thought was an interesting question because obviously this was one of the best directs we've had in a long, long time. Um, I'm sure you're on the same page as me though, where I still believe that it was delayed though. That there was a lot of good stuff in that direct, but it was nothing like a triple A. Like there was no 3D Mario or like a new 3D Zelda or anything. It was all very much like what Nintendo would have done if they still had the 3DS line going, and they're like, okay, here's some handhelds to hold us over. um, a new Mario and Luigi game, new 2D Zelda. They're great, but there's nothing in that direct that indicates to me like, oh, there's no way they were going to release the Switch 2 and this. You know what I mean?
I have no idea. I I'm not sure if it released this year, what game it's releasing next to. So I don't know. I like Yeah, I'm not saying yes or no. I just, if it released this year, I don't know which game it's releasing next to, and I know Nintendo's really worried about, well, I think they're worried about having games within those first couple of years and not having it be the Wii U, you know?
Oh yeah, they're
So
definitely stacking that library, and I'm sure they've got some huge launch titles, if not launch within the first month, games to go. But we don't know about them yet because they would have been delayed with the system. So can't put out games for a system that's not out yet. Well, I guess you could, but it wouldn't make any sense.
I mean, it's reasonable to think that both the launch title and the system got delayed. Uh, I'm going for Mario Odyssey 2 or whatever that title is going to be. I'm going for 3D Mario as their launch title because
Yeah,
of,
that's the safest bet, I would say.
yeah, it's the safest one. It's the safest one. It's just been way too long. But juicier, I mean, I think Zelda is going to be coming within the first 2 years of a new system coming out. Because again, I don't think they want, like we were joking about this through DM this week. They don't want Wii U where it's like, okay, we'll give you Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, and then not release a Zelda game until like the end of the life cycle. So I wonder what that game is. If it's not a Breath of the Wild universe, if it's not
Yeah, I
Echoes
think
of
they've said that
Wisdom.
they're done with that universe. I can't remember specifically, but I feel like I've read that. So it would definitely be a new thing. Probably using the same type of ideas because we can already see the. I'm already having a hard time remembering the name of the new one. Wisdom,
Echoes of Wisdom?
Echoes of
Echoes
Wisdom.
of
Yeah,
Wisdom.
We can see that Echoes of Wisdom is kind of following the same philosophy of like being more open world and being more like solve puzzles any way you like type thing. So the series will definitely continue doing that. But yeah, it's probably going to be in the first year or two
Right.
that
And
they'll announce
what
it, not that they'll release it. I don't know. I don't know when they'll release it, but they can definitely generate some hype by like being like, "Here's the Switch 2. It's coming out with a Mario game, and here's a trailer for a Zelda we have in development." Like I could totally see them
yeah.
doing that.
Yeah. I mean, it's got to be there. It's got to be in development. I mean, I'm wondering like if Echoes of Wisdom was in development since 2019. Like ever since Link's Awakening came out, has this game been on like the whiteboard? You know, I wonder sometimes about the development of games and like when they become like when they start as ideas, when they actually become those games. So the
Yeah.
only thing I would assume in a new Zelda game is open world. But when I start thinking about uh like game mechanics, perspective, what game engine they would use, just I have no idea. It's but it's coming. It's coming though. Have we ever talked about a first person Zelda game?
They actually, I don't know if this is why you're bringing it up, but they tried that with Ocarina of Time. A lot of the early development for Ocarina of Time was first person. I don't know if you knew that.
No,
Yeah,
did not.
I for some reason they didn't like it as much, but I mean, Skyrim has showed that that perspective can work.
Right. It's a huge challenge, isn't it? It's a huge challenge because like if you're playing as not your if you're playing as Link, it's just a very big challenge that at that point was not nearly as common.
There's
So
always like a
I
little bit of a
wonder,
disconnect for me with first person games because like I don't walk around with my hands in front of my face like you kind of have in most of them.
right, right, or like I've been playing a lot of like the crafting games where you always have like your one handout that has like a machine that does everything. I'm rambling now, but yeah, I think first person is just a huge challenge. And I wonder if they thought like, well, we want to feature Link, Link's character in it, and what's the right way of doing it? And they've never changed. They never did it in the future. They've always remained third person.
Yep.
But I just wonder what that would look like. I wonder, I don't work that much, so I sit around and think, what would a first person Mario game look like? Just
That's funny. Yeah, no,
yeah,
that'd be crazy. You'd
yeah.
have to look at like I feel like it would be like jumping platforming doesn't work great in first person either. Like I always think of the Turok games where I have to jump looking at the ground.
hmm Yeah, I've seen concepts of it online. Like I've seen like people like put like Mario 3 through like first person or put it through like Unreal Engine and uh yeah. Future of Mario I also don't know. I'm just assuming that it's going to be along it along the same lines. Yeah. I think we move on.
Yeah. So we can start getting into the news. It was kind of a slower news week, but there's a few things to talk about. One thing that jumped out to me is I saw an article about how the Crash Bandicoot Insane trilogy has now sold 20 million units worldwide. I don't know if you have it. I have it. I'm one of those 20 million units. I bring this up because I think it should be encouraging more of these types of releases. And we are seeing a lot of them. So it's not like they're not doing them, but like the Spyro trilogy sold very well also. There was that Tomb Raider and Metal Gear Solid trilogy they put out recently. they mentioned a Gex trilogy like in July of 2023 and then never followed up with it. So I don't know if that's still coming or not, but I really hope it is. Um and yeah, I'm just wondering, what do you think could help capitalize on the Switch's install base with this these trilogy remasters?
Is I think there's a usually a big disconnect between what, in my opinion, should happen and what games that we should have, and then what actually does happen. So, I mean, I wrote down I'm pessimistic because of it being Activision Blizzard, and my thoughts of them wanting a certain kind of game where they can make money month after month. So I just don't know how much they're going to be focusing on games that aren't World of Warcraft, games that you can constantly just be putting money into.
Yeah, but I
So
think the main
yeah,
thing with
go ahead.
this news story that I'm obsessed with is like I just hope it sends a message to even other. One that I keep thinking of is, why don't we have a Siphon Filter trilogy? Especially now that we got Metal Gear Solid, so um they were kind of competing for a little bit there. And I mean, not that Metal Gear Solid didn't dominate that competition, but whatever. Um Siphon Filter's a great set of a great set of games, a great trilogy on the original PlayStation. And the games are available on the PlayStation Network and stuff, so it's not like you know, it's not like they're hard to find. I think if they slapped them together in a trilogy for the Switch, I would pick it up. So I don't know. I'm like, where is that one? That's a big one that I feel like would benefit from the fact that the Switch has a bunch of trilogies on there, and this could be another one on the list that just takes advantage of the Switch's install base and sells, even if it sells 5 or 6 million copies. It doesn't have to sell 20 million like Crash Bandicoot. It's 5 to 6 would be a success.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I completely agree that this should encourage those companies. I just don't know if if it does. Like this is they have become a huge company, and I just don't know if they're going to be focusing on a game where they know it's not going to be a live service game, or they couldn't put it into something that is live service and have it be successful. So that's my only thing, where it's like I I think one thing, like I think they should do one thing and then they do another. I think we've talked on here a lot about different Nintendo games or remasters they could do, or different ideas where Nintendo could just be printing money. Like they could just be like easily making money with all these releases they could be coming out with, in our opinions. So I think we're in agreement, right?
Yeah, it's just speculation. It's just like, why won't they do this? Nobody seems to know. Especially when I think we can go into some of the news stories you put in here. It relates to when they do put stuff out, like Donkey Kong Country Returns HD. They can slap a $60 price tag on that and people pay for it. So maybe they don't need trilogies. Maybe they should just keep remastering these old games individually. And yeah, the internet is abuzz with this $60 price tag. Why? Why do you continue doing this, Nintendo? Um,
Let me do this breakdown for you. So, Donkey Kong Country Returns on Wii was $50 when it was released.
mhm,
Donkey Kong Country Returns 3D was $40 when it was released, which included n- new levels, new features. I don't. There was new things in it, and it was a cheaper game when it was re-released.
mhm,
This game, which won't be coming out until January, like won't be coming out until next year, is going to be $60. And I've already seen people point out, adjustments and inflation. But in my opinion, I just don't think a remaster or a game like this, which is looking like it's going to be more just like a graphical upgrade with probably some quality of life upgrades as well. I don't think it should be $60. And I'm I think I'm kind of with some people online where it's like, okay, Metroid Prime Remastered came out, was $40, is a great game. It's on sale right now, 20% off. It had great reviews. Meanwhile, games like Skyward Sword came out, they are $60. They never go on sale. And if you wanted to, you could point towards tons of other games that are just not consistent. So, my
But
question to
the
you,
thing with Metroid Prime though is that
yeah,
was really the only time they did that, and that's why it stands out so much and it's the example everybody uses. And I think the reason for Prime's low price point is the fact that the Metroid series, Nintendo's never had a lot of faith in it, and it never sells as well as all the other stuff. Even Prime, with all of its praise and its $40 price tag, hasn't sold as much as some of these other re-releases with a $60 price tag. So I think at the end of the day, I agree. Like a game like a re-release of a game like Luigi's Mansion 2, which is in the same boat, shouldn't be the same price as Mario Odyssey, which is a brand new current gen experience. But whether it should or shouldn't be isn't what determines the price. It's the fact that Nintendo knows they can charge $60 and they've seen the numbers and they've seen how it goes in the past. And if it's a strong enough franchise, like Donkey Kong is stronger than Metroid, they know that it's gonna sell well enough for them to have been, and then they'll just move on. So
right?
I honestly saw this being $60 a mile away the minute they reveal it. I was like, that's a six. I feel like I can pick them out at this point and pick the ones that for some reason they determine are $50 games and some reason they determine are 60.
Yeah, I don't like it. Yeah, I just think it's too much. I just think it's too much. And
Oh, I agree. And
I
it's
don't.
it's keeping someone like me who's on the fence about stuff like this. Like Sean's a huge Donkey Kong guy. I've never been really big on the franchise. And I'll tell you, if this was $40, I probably would have picked it up, but I am a definite no at 60. So while I agree with you, I also see the other side where Nintendo is like, yeah, but we can, so we're gonna, you know?
Yeah, I just like I understand the justification of this game is not as popular, so we're going to make it cheaper. But I want to be pro consumer, and I just don't think that's pro consumer. I think that's helping Nintendo as a company. So no offense, Nintendo, but like I'm always going to be on the side of you know helping consumers get the games they want, and in return have those games sell better. But I don't know, like if the games keep selling, Nintendo's never going to care, and then certain games only need to sell a few million for it to be, successful.
hmm
So
I
I
mean,
just don't know.
as of this date, even with the lower price point, even at $40, Metroid Prime Remaster has only sold only 1.9 million copies, which Donkey Kong at the $60 price point, they know will sell 4 or 5 million just from the brand alone. And I think that's how they're looking at it. It's not right. I agree with you there. But when people keep asking why, that's the answer. That is the answer. Is Metroid, the brand, just doesn't sell as well. So they had to give more incentive to buy it. Donkey Kong does sell, so they didn't need a reason to lower the price. That's the why. The fact of the matter is it's not right. We all agree that they shouldn't do that, but If you're looking for answers, that's the answer.
Oh, speaking of which, I had this as a small news item. I usually I'm usually like very on top of my budget. Like I usually like have like exact amounts of like what I spend on what. But I went through, since it's like kind of the middle of the year, my gaming budget for the year. And I don't know if it'll seem like a lot to anyone, but this year I'm averaging about $30 a month on buying games, because I don't think I've bought a full price or like a $60 game yet this year. I will in September, and probably in November, but I for the amount of games that I've bought this year, I think that's really good.
Yeah. It's a
So
great time to
so
be playing games. Like there's always stuff on sale. There were the summer sales. There's always like even indie games get priced. Like, I mean, look at Stardew Valley. I've gotten a bazillion hours out of that for $14. So it's just like you never had this back in the day. Back in the Nintendo 64 era, we never had the $14 indie game option. So it's for every time Nintendo takes advantage of us with a $60 price tag, there's another game out there just as good for $20 or less. So just seek them out.
I guess I would just end with saying that I hope that after a while things start to get, slowly better and better, because I do think more and more people are veering away from these $70 AAA titles. Not necessarily Nintendo, but like Bethesda, like other, just like other bigger games sometimes. Or they're just kind of waiting for it. So yeah, I hope that I just hope the price points go down after a while. And I think we'll be seeing a lot more $70 like Tears of the Kingdom type titles coming out from Nintendo. That might be the new price point when the new system comes out.
Well, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. I think Tears of the Kingdom was they even had interviews where they made a point that it was a very special case as to why it was at that price tag, and they cited like the long development time and different things. So I don't know if we'll start seeing that as a norm, but we'll have to wait and see. I think they're going to be all over the map, just like they are right now. I think they're going to have like some 50, some very rare $40 games, and yeah, they're going to be all over the place.
Development times, Metroid Prime 4 is going to be like $100.
So
it's like, hey guys, it's really
before we got
expensive.
before we got into the tournament is so a lot of people have been talking about this week, that the Nintendo Switch's lifetime unit sales are almost past the PlayStation 2 in North America. And I just wanted to toss out some hard numbers real quick, where I think it's all but guaranteed the Switch is going to become the top selling system of all time at this point, because the goal they have to hit is 160 million PlayStation, 160 million units if they want to beat that claimed PlayStation record. I think they'll do it fine, because here's the raw numbers. As of they're at 142, I think, right now. In 2023, we saw a 12% drop in system sales, and they still sold 17.97, so basically 18 million units in 2023. We've been told that this year has been a better year for Switch sales. We don't have the number yet, but even if it's the same 12% drop, that's another 15.81 million units this year. If the next year we have the same drop, which it'll probably get bigger, but dream with me here, that's another 13.91 million units. So in the next 2 years, I think we could easily see the Switch hit 160. Now, the Switch 2 is going to slow this down, but I don't think it's going to stop it. I think they're going to be making Switch exclusive games well into the Switch 2's life. And I'm tossing it out right now. I think from where I'm sitting, the Switch is going to sell around 160 million units by the end of its life.
Yeah, it's going to be hard to compare everything at the end. I think at the end we'll just be looking at, here's the big number, and Nintendo's big number is bigger than PlayStation's big number. It's a bigger lifespan. The Switch came out. The Switch was extremely popular during a pandemic. There's just
Well,
so many
PlayStation
things.
2 had a gigantic lifespan. It was supported for 12 years, believe it or not. That's part of
Yeah,
why it's the number one selling system. Yeah, I mean the PlayStation 3 was out when they were still. I mean PlayStation 3, the PlayStation 4 was almost out when they stopped the PlayStation 2. That thing went on forever.
I I didn't do any research for this part. Did you do anything about like what was PlayStation doing in the second half of its life, pretty much? Like what
I
was
mean, it was
PlayStation
most.
doing in its seventh year, pretty much?
I mean, it was mostly by that point. I think like all the stuff that was just hitting everything. Like you'd get your Madden games, you'd get Just Dance, like stuff like
Yeah.
that. Like Rock Band, I think probably, or maybe Guitar Hero, came to PlayStation 2. Like the stuff that was releasing on everything, but it was still being supported. You know what I mean? They weren't getting any exclusives at that point.
It's 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 very different. I think it's like trying for me to like compare eras of like NBA basketball, of like when you're trying to figure out like who's like the greatest basketball player, and like things, and the game has changed so much, but like, hey, like this is a Nintendo podcast. I have said on here that I believe the Switch is the most significant single console of all time, so I don't need any convincing. um I, it just it feels much, it just feels much different. And I don't know if it's ever going to be broken, because as I've said as well, I think the console wars are kind of ending, or changing, at least as far as the way we look at it.
Well, we know what Fallout tells us: war never changes. So
Yeah.
we'll have to
I
keep watching.
Yeah, I don't know if Nintendo will ever have a system that sells this well again. Like the next Switch could sell 100 million units, and it would be a huge success.
It
So I just don't
probably
I just
won't
don't
be
know.
the next system, but I don't know if I would say never. As gaming becomes more and more and more mainstream, you never know what, the Switch 4 could be. What kind of environment we could be looking at by then. So
Yeah,
I wouldn't say never, but probably not the Switch 2.
yeah, but I can't even imagine that. I just can't,
Exactly.
like I can't even imagine it, because again, when at least I started on this podcast, at that point, PS2 was never going to be beat. I mean, that was a narrative for such a long time, that
Well, that was
PS2 was
because
always
everyone
going
kept
to be.
expecting the Switch sales to drop more. And they like it's unheard of for a system to be 7 years in and still be selling 18 million units a year. And you know why it is? It's because of the main thing they have going for it, which the next system will have as well. But think of how many of those 18 million units sold last year are from people having lost or damaged systems, or the fact that parents will buy a Switch for every kid they have in the house. They don't do that with PlayStation. You don't buy 5 PlayStations. But yeah, I could totally see a house like if they're in the right income bracket, buying 5 Switches for each kid, So yeah.
Well, in the PS2 era, were there anyone making like like home videos of them showing off like their 30 different PS2s that they have and posting it
Yeah,
online.
exactly. Like the
Like
different custom ones they come out, and not custom, but you know what I mean. The special ones like that Zelda one and stuff like that.
like the content creators you follow, how many Switches do they have? Like
Oh
some of
yeah.
the ones that I follow, they have more than 20, more than
Well,
30
I'll
probably.
admit my house has two. My wife wanted her own, and she barely uses it. But we've got two here, and we've technically bought three because I had to replace one once. So we're a three Switch house. So
I
yeah.
have bought I have one, I have bought four because I replaced mine with my OLED and I've bought in and sold two Switch Lights.
So there, that's what's contributing to the sales is the fact that you can
it,
do that with a Switch, but you don't do that with a PlayStation 5.
it was like a Switch Lite was like, oh, like I had it like, and like I think Switch Lite is awesome. I honestly like, but then it's like I didn't use it that much, and okay, I traded for something else that I used. Uh, so we've all contributed to it. Some people online have contributed way more. Yeah, and guys, just people online, just be honest. Like if you have 500 Switch games, you're not playing all of them. Just be honest.
Oh,
Just
don't
be
even
like, I
get me
like to collect games.
started on those pictures where they post like an entire bookshelf, and I'm like, there's no way. This it's not possible. It's just not. It's not possible you're playing all those games. But
And it's fine.
yeah.
It's fine. If you like to collect games, that's fine. But don't be like, oh yeah, I play all of them. No, because like there's a certain amount of time. Like I know how much time is in a day and how much time there has been since the Switch has been out. You have not played that. You have not played all of those games. All right, I'm done. That's
So from Nintendo's biggest success to their biggest failure, we're going to continue this tournament and try to determine what Nintendo's biggest mistake was. And this week is one of the best matchups I think we have ever had. Okay. So we have the Wii U versus the 64 disk drive, which, oh boy, is that a stack of failure. What are your thoughts off the bat, Harrison?
so. I intentionally did not make a choice on this one until we can kind of hammer some things and kind of figure this out. Because when I think of the Wii U, and I brought this up the first time we talked about it, is that every huge failure of the Wii U directly influenced the Switch, which could be Nintendo's greatest success, as you just said. But does does that mean we take that mistake as a benefit, or do we take it as it was a huge mistake? And if the Switch didn't do well, Nintendo is a completely different company right now because of consistent failures of systems. So I'm torn, honestly. 64 disk drive, I did a huge deep dive on, and it is horrible. But the Wii U is pretty bad. So what do you think? Like do we take anything away from the fact that the Wii U influenced something huge while the 64 disk drive was just uh, a failure in itself?
Yeah, and I don't think it can be understated how much of the Switch was like before the Switch launched. There were so many, you can still find them. They're still on YouTube. People who were like, the Switch is going to fail. It's going to be such a failure. This is just a smaller version of the Wii U. Like, there's a lot of Wii U DNA in the Switch, and especially from the first few reveals we got, people were like, no, we already said we don't want this. So yeah, it definitely led into that. Um, the disk drive. is like, I don't know. It's like comparing a plane. The Wii U was able to take off and fly a couple of hundred yards before it crashed. I feel like the disk drive exploded before it left the garage. You know, like it was just a flame. And I still don't know which worse for them, because they put all this time and effort into the Wii U just for it to not succeed. Whereas, and okay, here's another thing I remember about when the Wii U was released. I remember every single article that reviewed the Wii U praised it for Nintendo being the first company to be brave enough to step into that next generation. At the time, the narrative was like, well, we've had the PlayStation forever and we've had this Xbox forever. They need to put out a new system. At least Nintendo is finally releasing a successor to the Wii. And that's about as far as they got for praise. Is that, well, you did something.
Yeah, yeah. The N64 disc drive, I said last time, was like it's like the Fire Fest of Nintendo. It's like it had these huge expectations. It changed so many times, got delayed so many times. So many games were announced and canceled for it, and it should have never been released, but they felt like they had to push ahead and just put it out into the world at a time, in my opinion, which was leading up to the pinnacle of the console wars. And luckily the N64 was so successful that people kind of forget about it. So I think how I'm torn is that the disk drive is more embarrassing, but the Wii U is probably a bigger failure. But I don't know if it's a bigger mistake, but it's probably a bigger failure because everything was centered around the Wii U when it came out.
I agree with
So I'm
that,
torn.
because the disk drive was, if the disk drive released worldwide, it would have been the bigger failure. But they were able to contain the bleeding and release basically enough systems to I don't know, save face. I don't even know why they released them. But it's funny. Something I came across in my research for this too is the disk drive, like they, throughout the whole development, Nintendo didn't even seem to know what it was. You know what I mean? Have you read those articles where they talk about, like, early on, back when it was supposed to release within the first year of the Nintendo 64, they didn't even have what the games were going to look like narrowed down yet, because they talk about, oh, maybe we'll be using CDs, maybe we'll be using these type of discs, but they didn't even know that yet. So they had no idea, like playing around, and eventually it turned out to be nothing. So yeah,
Right.
I
Right.
agree. I still don't know which is worse for them, because they were able to stop the disc. So which is worse? Like, something you have to basically hide from the public to be like, nah, this never happened, or something that you're very open about. You're like, yep, we tried something. It didn't work.
I know which one is more easily forgotten.
Yeah.
Which is a disk drive. Um, the Wii U, I'm sure, lost them more money. Uh, but the disk drive was a huge failure that lost them lots of money at that time. Um, so I don't know. I'm kind of I'm kind of leaning towards I'm kind of leaning towards Wii U, and I hate to do it because the disk drive is it's just so awful when you start to like I never really read into it until this podcast. It's pretty insane. I think I want to lean towards Wii U because I don't think I want to take in the consideration of the Switch being successful because
Well,
the Switch being
here's a way
successful
to
is
think of
its
it.
own thing. Go
Um,
ahead.
here's why I am also leaning towards the Wii U the more I think about it. So the 64 disk drive, yes, huge failure, but it almost happened concurrently with the Nintendo 64's it wasn't a massive success, but it was working for the company. And by the time the disk drive was put out, the GameCube had already been announced. So it was almost like they didn't need time to adjust for the 64 disk drive's failure. They were already going on the next system. It would be like if we had the Nintendo Wii and then the Wii U came out, but the week the Wii U came out, they were like, and the Switch is coming next month. Like, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like, so um it didn't have time to fail, as weird as that sounds. So I think because the Wii U was given that time where they put all their eggs in that basket and they didn't have the Switch planned yet. It's the bigger failure because they seem to at least know that the 64 disk drive wasn't worth it. Like they were aware. They were like, okay, we're going to release this thing to only like a couple of thousand people, but we got the GameCube coming. This is
It
it,
didn't even
guys.
release. It wasn't even in stores originally.
Yeah, it was mail order.
It was yeah, it was mail order originally.
So like the Wii U,
So
they were
yeah,
like, this is it, guys. This is yeah. So now I'm on board with the Wii U being the answer. Wii U, bigger failure because they put all their eggs in that basket. We're confident this is what our next generation's going to be. And then it ended up losing all their third party support, having a terrible launch, had a terrible reveal where people didn't even know what it was. They thought it was just the controller. And yeah, I'm going with Wii U as well. Wii U is a bigger mistake than the Nintendo 64 disk drive. You heard it here.
yeah. I mean, uh, like Nintendo, they had to know like the Switch, like it had to be it, and the fact that the Switch was so successful, yeah, like even though it was influenced by a failure, we can't we can't give extra points to a failure because it was so bad that the next one was so good. It's like, eh, it's like a toxic relationship almost. Um, so yeah, it moves on. Wait, and then what's next? We're in the final four. What's next week?
Next week is the Virtual Boy versus the
Sony,
PlayStation.
in a PlayStation. Okay. All right. Very exciting. Um, I really did not know coming into today which one we were going to choose, but I think this is the right answer.
Okay, so that moves us down to finally talking about the spotlight games that we selected, Mega Man and Mega Man 2 on the Game Boy. So let me get the details up here. They were released. Mega Man Dr. Wily's Revenge was released in Japan in July of 91, December of 91 here. And then Mega Man 2 was released in December of 91. Oh, did these come out the same year? Same day? Oh, no, that's Japan. Okay. So when we were getting Dr. Wily's Revenge here, they were getting Mega Man 2, same month. And then we got Mega Man 2 in 1992, only a couple of months later, February.
Right, and I'll just cut in. Mega Man 4 released 5 on NES, released 5 months before Mega Man 1 on Game Boy,
Well,
and I think it released just days before
do you
Mega
know what I mean?
Man
Like Mega Man
1 in North
2
America.
has oh, sorry, we had a disconnect error there. Um I was saying that makes sense because the bosses are like remixed. You know what I mean? Like Mega Man 2 has bosses from the NES Mega Man 3.
Right. Right. Whereas Mega Man 1 has Mega Man 2 bosses with a different final boss, I believe.
Mhm.
I think I'm getting that right. You see, this is really difficult. If like Mega Man fans, help.
Well,
Like I
from what
feel
I
like
understand, oh, okay.
I know I just feel like I feel I no I really felt like I need I felt like I was doing Kirby this week, where it's like I need a Kirby fan to just sit down with me and explain the lore for 30 minutes, just so I can like figure it out. There's too much Mega Man.
There's so much Mega Man. There's like 1,000 Mega Man games. There's different series. You've got Mega Man, you've got Mega Man X, you've got Mega Man Legends, you've got Mega Man, any type of subtitle you could think of, you can throw it in there. Battle Network. I played the first couple of those games. That has a collection now. They all have collections too, so that's good. You get
Yeah,
some.
yeah. There was mobile games. There was Mega Man on the Game Gear. There was Mega Man games. I found out that only released in Taiwan or in South Korea. Like uh, they're just too much. And Mega Man released 5 games in a little over 4 years for Game Boy. They released 8 games in a little over 10 years for NES. So, and apparently, they decided they wanted Mega Man on the Game Boy after Mega Man 3 came out, which was less than a year before Mega Man came out on the Game Boy. So they were just like just shooting these games out. Um, but I guess we should say that the these games were not made by Capcom, correct?
No, and that's why they're not that good. Spoiler for my opinion when I rank it later, but later after the reason I kind of thought of separating this is I had a vague memory of this when we drew these and I was right is the first two aren't that good, but starting with the third one, they have different. I don't know if it's a different developer, but it's a different team, and the 3, 4, and 5 are actually better games. But I remember owning these back in the day. I knew I had the worst of the Game Boy Mega Man games because my friends, I think I knew someone who had four. But yeah, these are if out of all the Mega Man games, you play them in order. They kind of get better as they go. Well, actually, I kind of think the second one here is worse than the first one. So they have a little trip out of the gate, and then they take off running.
The second one was certainly not received well. The
Well,
first one seemed like it was received pretty well, maybe because it was the first one. I don't
and I
know.
think a lot of it is because they didn't separate it much from the NES games. They just called it Mega Man 2. They didn't even give it a Dr. Wily's Revenge subtitle. And when you compare Mega Man 2 to Mega Man 2, it's like this is one of the most beloved games of all time, and this is what you
Mhm.
did with it on the Game Boy. And it doesn't even seem like you were trying to make Mega Man 2 on the Game Boy because, like I said, they had Mega Man 3 Robot Masters in there. So, what is going on here, guys? Why'd you butcher this thing? It's
Yeah,
definitely of the classic Mega Man series. If you even include this as classic Mega Man, the bottom of the barrel are these two games.
yeah. I mean, once again, this is a rough era. It's I don't know if it's just developers didn't know how to make games on such a small system, or what it was, or if it was just an afterthought. Researching it, it sounds like an afterthought, but I didn't really read like too many like interviews or anything like that. Because like if you read like the wiki, it's like well, they chose this developer who really likes Mega Man, and they said he understands Mega Man pretty well, so he develops the game. uh yeah, I'm leaving this game pretty low on my list because I know we're going to be playing more Mega Man in the future. How does the difficulty compare to NES? What do you think?
I think they're well. The second game isn't difficult. It's just kind of awkward to play, but that first Dr. Wily's Revenge, way more difficult. Maybe not more difficult than the very, very first Mega Man on NES. But for me, that one's the most challenging, and I think it's because they hadn't quite perfected the formula that they would go on to perfect in Mega Man 2. But yeah, it's difficult than the NES games. It's hard to say between the first one and the first NES and the first Game Boy one. But I don't know. The difficulty level's too high for my liking. I'll tell you that.
Me too. And then in Mega Man 2, and I'll be clear, Game Boy, the one that we played, uh, Rush is the dog, right? The dog. He's from Mega Man 3 NES. Is that
Yes.
right?
Yep.
Yes. Okay.
Each
This is
game kind of
difficult, guys.
added something. So like, I forget what 2 added. Obviously, 1 started the series on NES. I can't remember what 2 added. And then 3 added Rush, 4 added the Charge Shot, and they just kept kind of expanding like that.
I thought that it's playing through it. I thought it was decent for the era, but I have to say it in that context that I think it was decent as in it looked better than other Game Boy games in that era, in my opinion.
Well,
Uh,
Mega Man 2 introduced the energy tank, and the password system. So those are pretty big. On NES, I mean.
right, right. Um, so I think when we talk about rankings, I would also like to talk just more about who would you recommend this game to, if anyone at all. So before doing your rankings, who would you recommend Mega Man 1 and 2 to?
I would recommend them to Mega Man diehards. I would recommend them to anyone who is interested in the history of the Mega Man franchise, but basically people specifically interested in Mega Man. I wouldn't recommend this to anyone who's just casually like, oh, I'd like to play a Game Boy platformer or, a Game Boy shooting game. I don't think I'd recommend these. I'd recommend later in the series for sure. Mega Man 5, from what I understand online, and we'll get to it eventually, the Game Boy Mega Man 5, anyway, is the best of all of these. So we'll figure it out when we get there. And if I was going to casually recommend one, I'd recommend that one. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend these to anyone but like Mega Man diehards or people trying to like see how the series evolved.
I totally agree, and I'll just add that they're not long games. If you wanted to try it out,
Yeah, and
they're not
Switch
they're not
Online
long.
is more forgiving. You've got the rewind feature, you've got save states. So that's something you wouldn't have had back in the day. But it doesn't make up for the challenge.
Right. And I think we would be in agreement that it definitely has a place on the online service, right? It's not a long game, does not take up space, and having all 5 Mega Man games on there definitely looks nice, right?
It does. I just wish we had more full series like that. Like, when are we going to get, I mean, everyone's clamoring for the original Pokemon games. But besides those, like, I would like to see more patches in the library of like a bunch of the same series in a row. So get on that, Nintendo. Put some Final Fantasies on there. No one's really doing anything with the Game Boy Final Fantasies. Throw those up there.
Right. Right. So I had mine. Hold on.
Which,
Let
by
me
the
give you
way,
the
if
exact
you're
number.
yelling at your radio right now, I'm aware that the Game Boy Final Fantasies aren't really Final Fantasy games. It's a whole thing. We'll get into it if we ever have to. They were called something
um,
different in Japan. I think they were Dragon Quest games. I don't know. All I know is they were different.
I'm a bit torn on how to split up games now, so I'm gonna split it up. I'll put Mega Man 1 at number 50 on my list and Mega Man 2 at number 51. I feel pretty similar. The first one I definitely enjoyed more, but games above it, for example, Street Fighter 2, Pokemon Snap, Excite Bike, Dreamland 3. Yeah, it's very much in like the low of my list. I
Mhm.
anticipate, and I'm putting it. And I wanted to put it low again because I think we'll be doing Mega Man in the near future.
Yeah, I put Dr. Wily's Revenge at 56 and Mega Man 2 at 57. That puts them just below the Sega Genesis version of Street Fighter 2 Tournament Edition and right above Versus Excite Bike. So that's about where they fall, and I feel pretty comfortable with that ranking. I think I would rather play these than Excite Bike because I'm not that keen on it. I realize Excite Bike's probably a better game, but I think I'd rather, if you want to find the sweet spot of what would I rather play these than, it's right about there.
All right.
So yeah, let's find out
What
what
do we?
we're going to be playing next time on the Spotlight segment. Okay, I'm not very familiar with this one. So we drew Super Nintendo's Mario's Super Picross. And I don't really know much about Picross. I know it's like a puzzle game. I've played Sudoku in my day. I've played little things like that, and it seems like it's like the same type of idea where I know it makes a picture when you're done, and you got to figure out where the things go. Other than that, I have no idea. Do you know Picross?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. One of many of the SNES puzzle games we're going to be reviewing. But it's the only one. It's the only one. It's the only one, correct? I think.
The only Picross game? Yeah, I think it's the only Picross game on there.
Okay.
We can look that up in between episodes, and if there's another one, we'll lump it in.
We're only fans over here. That's
Yeah,
it.
we're not experts. We don't have all the titles on Switch Online memorized. And that about wraps it up for our podcast this week, I think. So if you want to hear us talk about Mario Picross, tune in next week for more Nintendo news. There's probably going to be more next week as we, get closer and closer. I think there's something coming in August. I'm just going to throw that out there. I don't remember if I said that during this recording, but from what we saw in that direct, Nintendo is a big hole in August. They've got NES World Champs coming out in July, nothing in August, and then all the way at the end of September is Zelda, but almost 2 months and nothing. So something's happening in August. So keep that in mind. Uh, and yeah, if you'd like to send us a question, like we had that listener send us a question or anything else, you can contact us at nintendotherapypod@gmail.com. We also got a Reddit, Nintendo Therapy. We got Gmail. We got Gmail. We got Twitter, Nintendo Therapy. I'm rambling here. I can't talk anymore. It's time to end the podcast. We'll see you next week.